Hello, my name is Muhammad Azril bin Khairul Al-Noor and I'm going to discuss about the inflation problem in a selected country. So the country that we are chosen are the Singapore. One of the most important economic problems facing all nations, including Singapore, which has highly developed and interconnected economy, is inflation. Simply put, inflation is the gradual rise in the average price of goods and services within an economy over a given length of time. While high inflation can reduce purchasing power, skew decisions about saving and spending, and foster economic uncertainty, moderate inflation is generally linked to economic growth. The economy of Singapore is often heavily dependent on trade and prioritizes manufacturing and services. Singapore imports a large amount of goods, including necessities like food and energy. Due to its limited natural resources, due to this reliance, Singapore is more vulnerable to changes in world prices, which drives up internal inflation. Singapore has always been able to keep its inflation rates quite low and stable because of its strict fiscal and monetary policies, careful planning of its economy, and its focus on maintaining its competitiveness. However, Singapore has experienced periods of inflationary pressure similar to many other economies, especially during times of global economic crisis or rises in the price of goods. In conclusion, Singapore inflation is a complex issue impacted by both internal and international economic factors. Although the nation has successfully controlled inflation in the past, constant attention to detailed and flexible policy approaches are necessary to reduce its effects and guarantee long-term economic expansion. Knowing the complex natures of inflation in Singapore allows the development of effective tactics to preserve monetary equilibrium and enhance the standard of living for everyone in the country.
Hi, my name is Nur Aisha Binta Abdul Halim. My number matric 2023-188713. Now I will present about definition of inflation. Inflation refers to the substantial increase to general price level or goods and service in the economy over a period of time. It indicates a decrease in the purchase power of a nation currencies, meaning that each unit of currency buy fewer goods and services as time goes on.
Hello, my name is Muhammad Aiman Baki bin Shamsukma, and now we are moving on to measurement of inflation rate. So, measurement of inflation rate can be known from an increase in cost of household goods and service. For example, Consumer Price Index (CPI) is well known as indicator of inflation as it monitor the percentage change in the cost of households' consumption of a basket of goods and service. For more than 61 years, Singapore's consumer price inflation rate fluctuated between negative 1.8% and 22.4%. And in 2002, the annual rate of inflation was estimated for 6.1%.
Types of inflation. A significant trend inflation is defined as a long-term consistent increase in the average price of goods and services. Both domestic and international factors impact the dynamic in inflation in Singapore. An economy that is largely open and dependent on trade, understanding the various kinds of inflation that are common in Singapore is crucial for knowledgeable economic administration and the development of policies. The different forms of inflation that impact Singapore and discussed essay, including cost push inflation, when the cost for manufacturing goods and services grow, firms pass these higher expenses onto customers in the form of higher prices, a trend known as cost push inflation. Cost push inflation in Singapore is caused by a number of causes and can have a big impact of the economy's total price level. This article provides an extensive examination of Singapore's cost push inflation, its effects and policy solution. There are some causes of cost push inflation in Singapore. As example, wages increases. Singapore frequently has job opportunities that are scarce and low unemployment rates. Wages typically increase when companies bid for a smaller pool of labor. For example, there is usually a labor scarcity in industry like technology, finance and healthcare, which drives up salaries.
Hi everyone, my name is Christina Donazira binti Syarul Harimi and I will talk about effect of inflation. Singapore has generally had low and stable inflation. However, high inflation can be a problem for an economy because it can reduce the purchasing power of people's incomes and savings. When prices are rising rapidly, the value of money declines, which means that people need to spend more money to buy the same goods and services. This can be especially difficult for those on fixed incomes such as retired who might not be able to keep up with the rising cost of living. There are several effects of inflation we can see in Singapore, which is first, planning for the future. High and unpredictable inflation can make it difficult for people to plan for the future as they may not know how much things will cost. Second, cost of living. Inflation typically leads to higher price for goods and services, which can reduce the purchasing power of households. This affects everyday expenses such as food, housing, transportation, and utilities. Singapore has relatively high cost of living, so inflationary pressure can amplify the financial strain on residents. Third, social impact. Inflation can be exacerbate income inequality if certain groups are disproportionately affected by rising price. Low-income households in particular may face challenges in maintaining their living standard as essential expenses become more costly. Next, interest rate. To try to curb high inflation, central banks like the Monetary Authority of Singapore may raise interest rates. While this can help to reduce inflation, it can also make borrowing more expensive, which can be a burden for businesses and individuals who may take out loans. And last, government policy. The Singapore government employs various measures to manage inflation, including adjusting monetary policy through mass, implementing fiscal policy, and monitoring price stability. This policy aims to balance economic growth with price stability to ensure sustainable development.
Now I will present about discussion of the inflation problem in Singapore. In Singapore, the price percentage is still in the normal position. Every year, the price went up and down. As we know, when there is an increase in the level of price, it will cost the community expenses because they need to find more money to buy the stuff that they need. The reason why Singapore was having inflation is because of cost push inflation can be happening where the price varies in inflation that cause the higher cost of production and raw material. Thank you.
Given its open economy and dependent on trade, Singapore continues to be very concerned about inflation. Recent developments in the form of improving domestic labour markets, increasing prices for commodities, and problems to the global supply chain have highlighted Singapore's potential to both internal and external price inflation. In order to maintain sustained economic stability and flexibility, Singapore needs to keep increasing productivity, promoting innovation, and expanding its economic base. The social effects of inflation must be tackled as well by specific help for disadvantaged organizations that work to keep necessities affordable. However, managing inflation is not about immediate policy measures. It also requires a sustained effort to ensure economic resilience and stability. This includes continuous monitoring of global economic trends, proactive adjustment to monetary and fiscal policies, and target support for vulnerable population to cushion the impact of rising costs. Ensuring affordable housing, healthcare, and essential goods remain a priority to protect the welfare of Singaporeans. In conclusion, Singapore's complete method to governing inflation offers a strong framework for tackling both present and future issues. Given the fact that inflation is a persistent problem that can threaten social peace and economic stability, through a careful balance between short-term fixes and long-term strategy, Singapore may effectively reduce the negative impacts of inflation and carry on to be a successful and competitive global economy.